The laughter hadn't fully died down before I set my napkin on the table. 12 people watched me stand up, button my jacket, and smile. Not at my wife. Not at the man who'd just choked on his drink, laughing. Just smiled at the room, said 7 words, and walked out. She called it overreacting. Her father called it something else entirely. So did the bank. So did the judge. And by the time she understood what she'd actually thrown away, I was already somewhere she couldn't reach. My name is Marcus Webb. I'm 52 years old. I built Meridian Heavy Supply out of a leaking storage unit, a second-hand forklift, and 15 years of refusing to quit. Today we hold contracts with industrial plants across 4 states. My hands used to carry the inventory. Now they sign the agreements. But that night at Rosario's, those same hands gripped a wine glass so tightly the crystal hummed. Diane sat across the table from me in that deep burgundy dress, the one she knew I loved. Hair swept back, eyes bright, laughing at something our guest had said. She was still beautiful. That's what had drawn me to her 16 years earlier, at her father's foundation dinner. She was 24, vivid and restless. I was 36, recently divorced, still bleeding from a marriage that had collapsed under the weight of my ambition. Diane felt like someone had opened a window in a room I'd been suffocating in. Her son Mason was barely 3 when we met. She'd been vague about his father, a phase, she said, someone who didn't stick around. I didn't press, I just showed up, changed diapers, taught him to ride a bike, sat through every school play and parent-teacher conference. He called me Dad before I ever asked him to. But that night at Rosario's, something cracked. My business partner, Grayson, had been drinking since the appetizers arrived. He made some toast about anniversary gifts, something smug and winking. And Diane laughed, that warm, musical laugh I used to fall asleep thinking about. Then she said it. Casual, light, like she was commenting on the weather. Well, at least my ex was more generous. Marcus is more of a practical man. The table erupted. Grayson nearly spit his wine. His wife, Priya, gasped and then covered her mouth, giggling. Dennis from our accounting firm slapped the table twice. Diane raised her glass, grinning. Oh, come on, babe. Don't make that face. You know I'm kidding. I wasn't making a face. I was calculating. I set down my napkin, slowly, deliberately, and I looked at her. Not with anger, not with hurt. Just looked. The way you look at something you're seeing clearly for the first time. Thank you for the honesty, Diane. The laughter didn't die dramatically. It just faded, like a fire running out of air. People suddenly became very interested in their plates. Priya cleared her throat. Grayson reached for the wine bottle. Diane's smile slipped. Marcus, it was a joke. I stood up, smoothed my jacket, and smiled one more time. Not at her. At no one in particular. Excuse me, I said, and walked out. No storm, no slammed door, just gone. Behind me, I could hear Diane's voice pick back up, bright and slightly too loud, trying to restart the evening. He's such a good sport, really. But I wasn't a good sport anymore. I was done being the practical man, the safe choice, the one who paid for everything and took the jokes on the chin because keeping the peace was easier than burning the house down. I sat in my truck in the parking lot for 20 minutes without starting the engine. Just sat in the dark, listening to my own breathing, feeling something cold and purposeful settle in my chest. That joke was going to cost her more than she'd ever imagined. I didn't go home. Instead, I drove to the original warehouse, The one where all of this started 15 years ago. Past midnight. Fluorescent lights humming. Rows of industrial compressors and hydraulic rigs casting long shadows. I climbed the metal staircase to the old office, the one I'd worked from before we moved downtown. The new office had river views and marble floors. This one had a concrete wall and a chair I'd bought at a garage sale in 2007. I sat down and looked at my phone. 19 missed calls from Diane. 19. I set the phone face down and opened my laptop instead. Client requests, contract renewals, and then, buried 3 weeks back, an email that stopped my blood cold. The subject line read, "Dad, I need to tell you something." It was from Mason. He'd never written that word before. Said it out loud all the time, easy and natural like breathing, but he'd never typed it. My hand went still on the keyboard. "Dad, I don't know how to say this, so I'm just going to say it. A few months ago, I saw something on Mom's phone. She left it on the kitchen counter, and I wasn't snooping, I swear. There were messages from a guy named Cole. They weren't just friends. I took screenshots because I didn't know what else to do. I've been carrying this around, and it's destroying me. I kept trying to tell you in person, and I kept losing my nerve. I'm sorry. You deserve to know. I'm always on your side. Mason." 3 attachments. I opened the first screenshot, a text thread. Diane's phone contact listed simply as C, dated 4 months back. Flirty at first, then explicit. Hotel names, timestamps matching weeks I'd been traveling for business. The second screenshot was a photo. Diane in a restaurant booth with a man I didn't recognize. Mid-30s, lean, the kind of smile that knew it was working. His arm around her shoulders. Her head tilted toward him like she belonged there. The third was a voice message transcription. "I know I should feel guilty, but I don't. Marcus is a good man. He's just boring. You make me feel like myself again." I sat with that for a long time. Boring. I wasn't angry. I was numb. And then, slowly, something else arrived. Not rage, but clarity. Cold and clean as winter air. Mason had known for months. This 17-year-old kid had been carrying this weight alone, protecting me, gathering evidence, trying to find the right moment. While his mother played games, my son had been quietly building a case. He was more of an adult than most people twice his age. I typed back, "Mason, thank you for trusting me. You did exactly the right thing. Don't worry about what happens next. I'll handle it. You didn't betray anyone. You protected what matters. I'm proud of you. Come to the warehouse if you need somewhere to be tonight. Either way, you're not in trouble. You never were. Dad." 20 minutes later, headlights swept across the parking lot. Mason's old hatchback pulled in, and he walked through the bay door, carrying a backpack and looking like he'd been holding his breath for 3 months. I met him halfway. He didn't say anything, just dropped the bag and stood there, shoulders tight, eyes red at the corners. "Come here," I said. He stepped forward and I pulled him in. The kid was nearly my height now, broad in the shoulders, but he still felt like the 3-year-old who used to fall asleep on my chest during thunderstorms. "You're not alone in this," I told him. "We're going to be fine. Both of us." He nodded against my shoulder. And for the first time since I'd sat down in that parking lot, I felt something other than the cold. I felt purpose. Mason stayed that night. We set up a cot in the break room and I made terrible warehouse coffee while he unpacked his laptop. The kid had been thorough. Cloud backups, printed copies tucked in a folder labeled chemistry notes. When did you get this smart? I asked, sliding a mug across the table. He shrugged. I watch a lot of true crime. I figured if I was going to do this, I had to do it right. I sat across from him. You shouldn't have had to do any of this. She's my mom, Mason said quietly, but you're my dad, and she hurt you. That makes it my problem too. I didn't have an answer to that, so I just nodded. We spent the next 3 hours going through everything, the messages, hotel receipts, the photos. Mason had even tracked the man down. Cole Merritt, 34, personal trainer at an upscale downtown gym. Divorced. No kids. His social media was wall-to-wall selfies and quotes about living authentically. Mom met him 6 months ago, Mason said, scrolling without expression. She started going to the gym every morning, said she wanted to get healthier. He paused. She started doing her makeup before the gym instead of after. Came home later and later. Then one day I checked the location app on her phone. He looked up. She wasn't at the gym. I pulled up the prenuptial agreement on my screen. We'd signed it 11 years ago. Diane's father, Harlan, had insisted. He was old money, suspicious by nature, and he liked me well enough but trusted paperwork more than instinct. At the time, I'd thought it was excessive. Now I was grateful. Clause 12. B was underlined in my memory. In the event of documented infidelity or deliberate public humiliation of either party, the injured party may activate asset protection measures, including separation of joint accounts and revocation of shared property access. At 2 a.m., I called Victor Ashby, my attorney. He answered on the third ring, voice rough with sleep. Paul, he stopped himself. Marcus, this better be worth it. She cheated. I have documentation. Silence. Then, how much documentation? Enough. My office, 7 a.m. Bring everything. He hung up. Mason looked at me across the table. What happens now? Now, I said, closing the laptop. We execute. She thinks she's playing a game. She doesn't know I've been sitting on the rules for 11 years. What about me? Mason asked. His voice was steady, but I heard the fracture underneath. Where do I fit in all this? I met his eyes. You're my son. That doesn't change. Not now, not ever. I don't care what biology says. When this is over, you get to choose where you want to be. No pressure, no guilt. Just your choice. His jaw tightened. He nodded once, then again. I choose you. Then we're good. Now get some sleep. At the door, he stopped. Dad? Yeah? Thanks for not falling apart. I smiled, though it didn't reach my eyes. I'm saving that for later. So yeah, right now I've got work to do. By sunrise, I'd transferred half our joint savings into a personal account, activated the prenuptial clause through Victor, and started the paperwork to change the locks on the house. Diane had made a joke at my expense. She was about to find out exactly what it cost to underestimate a man who built his life from nothing. The next 6 hours were quiet and surgical. Joint account frozen by noon. House locks changed by 2. Divorce papers delivered to her office by 4. I watched it happen through security cameras I'd installed at the house 6 months ago. Another thing she didn't know about. I watched her arrive home at 3 in the morning, still in that burgundy dress, heels in hand. Watched her move from room to room checking. Watched her reach for her phone. It rang on the desk in front of me. I let it go to voicemail 6 times in 10 minutes. Then she called Mason. I texted him immediately. Don't answer. Let her figure it out. His response came in seconds. Already on it. Victor's office smelled like old books and burnt coffee. He sat across from me, reading glasses on, flipping through everything Mason had compiled and the screenshots, the hotel receipts, the photo. He didn't react. Just read. When he finished, he set the papers down and looked at me over his glasses. This is airtight. Good. Activate the prenup. Lock her out financially. Then I want full custody of Mason. He's not your biological son. I've been his father for 15 years. That counts. Victor nodded slowly. It does. And since he's 17 and can legally express a preference, and since she's the one with the affair on record, you've got a strong case. He leaned back. It's going to get ugly, Marcus. Let it. He smiled. Thin, precise. I'll have papers filed by noon. She'll be served by end of business. He paused. I've known you 18 years. You're not a vindictive man. But you're about to dismantle her world completely, you sure? I thought about the dinner table, the laughter, the way she'd looked at me like I was a punchline she'd grown tired of, the months of lies while I worked 80-hour weeks, building something she'd benefited from every single day. I'm sure, I said. Then let's get to work. 3 days after Diane was served, a black sedan pulled into the warehouse lot at 7 a.m. Harlan Voss, Diane's father, Glenn, climbed out, straightened his jacket, and walked toward the entrance like a man settling an old debt. Mason looked up from his breakfast. That's Grandpa Harlan. I know. You think he's here to defend her? Probably. But Harlan didn't look angry when he walked through the door. He looked tired. 69 years old, a man built by boardrooms and hard decisions, and right now he looked like someone had taken the air out of him. Paul, he said. Marcus, I corrected, out of habit. He almost smiled. Marcus, can we talk? I nodded toward my office. Mason watched us go, quiet and careful. Inside, Harlan sat heavily and stared at the floor for a long moment, hands folded in his lap. She came to me yesterday, crying, said you'd locked her out, frozen the accounts, turned Mason against her, said you were being cruel over a joke at dinner. And you believed her? He looked up, eyes sharp beneath the exhaustion. I've known you 15 years. You're a lot of things. Cruel isn't one of them. He reached into his jacket and set an envelope on my desk. So I hired an investigator. Had him follow her for a week. That's what he found. I opened it. More photos. Diane and Cole Merritt. Different hotels, different restaurants. Timestamps showing she'd been meeting him almost daily since I'd moved out. She didn't even slow down, Harlan said. His voice was flat. You walk out, file papers, and she just keeps going. I'm sorry you had to see this. Don't be. He leaned back and looked older than I'd ever seen him. When Diane's mother passed, she was 12. I didn't know how to grieve and raise a daughter at the same time. So I gave her everything instead. I thought that was love. I created someone who doesn't understand that consequences are real. He paused. That's my fault, not yours. Harlan, yep, let me finish. He raised one hand. I'm not excusing her, I'm explaining her. She believes the world bends for her. When it doesn't, she moves on to someone who will bend instead. He stood slowly. You're doing the right thing. Lock her out. Keep the house. Fight for Mason. He looked through the glass toward the break room where Mason was eating. That boy has your character, not hers. He deserves better. Harlan straightened. I'm changing my will. Diane won't see a dollar of it. Everything goes to Mason, held in trust. You'll manage it. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Because if I leave it to her, it disappears in 5 years and she has nothing to show for the wreckage she caused. Mason will build something with it. He's got your instincts. He walked to the door, then stopped without turning. I'm sorry I didn't see this sooner. You deserved better from both of us. He left. No drama, just a father making peace with who his daughter had chosen to be. Mason appeared in the doorway a moment later. What did he say? He's on our side. Mason's shoulders dropped 2 inches with relief. I thought he'd take her side. He's a fair man, I said. Fair men follow the evidence. 2 weeks later, Victor called with news that shifted everything. Marcus, we have a problem. Well, when you don't, Diane does. Talk to me. I've been auditing the financials for the divorce, standard procedure. And I found something in the education account you set up for Mason, the one with $160,000 in it. I sat up straight. And? It's sitting at $89,000. The number landed like a fist. $71,000 withdrawn over the past 2 years. Multiple transactions, all authorized by Diane. She had joint access. Where did it go? Hotels, restaurants. There's a $6,000 jewelry charge on the same day she pulled $12,000 from Mason's account. I stood up, pacing. She stole from her own son. Legally, joint access means it wasn't theft. Morally, a judge is going to eviscerate her for this. Document every transaction, every dollar. Already in progress. I found Mason on the warehouse floor, helping unload a shipment. He saw my face and jogged over. Dad, what happened? I didn't soften it. Your college fund, your mother withdrew $71,000 over the last 2 years. He stared at me. Hotels, restaurants. She spent your college money on the affair. Mason went very still. Then his jaw hardened and something moved across his face. Not quite grief, not quite rage. Something that looked like the final door closing. I saved for that, he said quietly. I mowed lawns. I stocked shelves. I put in half of everything I earned because I wanted to go to university and not owe money for the rest of my life. I know. And she just... He stopped. Turned away. When he turned back, his eyes were dry but red at the corners. I don't want to see her anymore. Okay. I'm not saying it to hurt her. I'm saying it because I'm done. She can call, she can cry. I don't have anything left for her. That's your right, I said. You don't owe her access to you. What happens to her? She answers for it in front of a judge. He nodded slowly, and something in his expression settled. Good. The gala invitation arrived 6 weeks after I filed. Thick cream paper, gold script. The Voss Foundation annual dinner. Celebrating 22 years of work in industrial safety and education. Harlan's crown jewel. I'd attended 12 times, always with Diane beside me, always the dutiful son-in-law. Mason picked it up off my desk and raised an eyebrow. You going? Thinking about it. She'll be there. I know. And you're going anyway? I looked at him. Mason, I've spent the last 6 weeks moving money and filing paperwork and keeping my head down. Maybe it's time I stopped acting like I'm the one who has something to hide. Can I come? Harlan asked you specifically? Yeah. Said it would mean something to him. He paused. And I want to be there for you. I looked at this kid, almost a man now, the one who'd chosen loyalty over comfort, who'd carried secrets that weren't his to carry, and I nodded. Then we go together. The Grand Meridian Hotel was packed. Business owners, city officials, donors moving through the ballroom in tailored suits and cocktail dresses. And there, near the center of the room, was Diane. Red dress. She always wore red when she wanted to be noticed. Laughing with her social circle, champagne in hand, performing. Harlan spotted us first. He crossed the room, shook my hand firmly, then pulled Mason into a hug that lasted longer than expected. "She's been telling people you're unstable," Harlan murmured to me, "that you've poisoned Mason against her." "What do people say?" He smiled without warmth. "They're polite to her face. 3 separate people have pulled me aside tonight, asking if you're all right." Word travels. Mason and I moved through the room. Handshakes, conversations. The careful choreography of a business community putting together what had happened. I caught Diane's eye from across the room. Her smile didn't freeze. It evaporated. The champagne glass trembled slightly before she turned back to her group. "She looks scared," Mason whispered beside me. "She should be." Dinner was served. Harlan gave his speech. Scholarships, safety programs, the foundation's work. And then, near the end, he paused. "Before we close tonight, I want to recognize someone who embodies everything this foundation stands for." He looked directly at me. "Marcus Webb, would you stand?" I stood, surprised. Marcus came to this city with a truck and a lease on a storage unit. He built Meridian Heavy Supply from nothing into one of the most trusted industrial suppliers in 4 states. He employs over 70 people. He's been a quiet partner of this foundation for years, funding scholarships, never once asking for recognition. Harlan's voice shifted slightly. "And he's been a father to my grandson Mason, who's here tonight. That boy has grown into someone I'm proud of. And that didn't happen by accident." Applause moved through the room. I glanced at Diane. She had gone pale. "Family isn't always blood," Harlan said. "Sometimes it's the choice to show up day after day without applause or acknowledgement. Marcus has been making that choice for 15 years. This foundation is grateful." I sat back down. Mason gripped my shoulder without saying anything. Diane left 10 minutes later. Didn't say goodbye to anyone, just heels on marble, and then she was gone. "She didn't expect that," Mason said. "No," I agreed. "She didn't." She caught up to us in the lobby on the way out. I'd been watching for it. "Marcus," her voice was tight. "We need to talk." I stopped. "Mason, stay beside me." Diane looked different up close, thinner, tired in a way the makeup couldn't fully hide. Her eyes were hard, but underneath the hardness was something close to panic. "You've turned everyone against me. My own father just humiliated me in front of 200 people. You've taken my son. You've locked me out of my own home." "My home," I said quietly. "I bought it 9 years before we were married. It's titled solely in my name, you know that. We built a life there. You built lies there. I built a life." She turned to Mason, her voice softened. "Honey, can we just talk? Just the 2 of us?" "No," Mason said, flat, quiet, final. "Please, I'm your mother. You stole my college fund to pay for your affair." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "You don't get to stand there and ask for grace." Diane's face went white. "I was going to pay it back." "When?" Mason interrupted. "You were still spending it when Dad found out. You didn't stop. You didn't slow down. So no, Mom, we're not doing this." Her eyes filled. Real tears this time? She turned back to me. "You did this to him. You turned him against me." "No," I said. "You did that yourself. I just stopped protecting you from what you earned." It was one mistake. It was months of planning. It was hotel rooms and stolen money and a dinner table full of people laughing while you performed. You chose all of it over and over again. I stepped closer and lowered my voice. You told that table your ex was bigger in the gift department. You wanted them to laugh at me, to see me as the boring, practical husband who couldn't measure up. I paused. Maybe he gave you bigger gifts. But I gave you a home, a family, and 15 years of showing up. You traded all of that for cheap company and a gym membership. I turned to leave, then stopped once. One more thing. You told people your ex was more generous, but I'm the one people in that room respect. The words landed clean. We walked out. The valet brought the truck around. Mason climbed in and sat quietly as we pulled onto the street. After a while, he said, "That was brutal. She earned it." "Yeah," he said, "she did." We drove home in a silence that wasn't heavy. It was the silence of two people who had just fought something and won. The courtroom was plain, fluorescent lights, wooden benches, the fluorescent hum of a Tuesday morning. Diane sat at the opposite table with her attorney. Mason sat beside me, jaw set, hands still. Judge Renata Foley had been on the bench for 28 years. Victor had told me she had absolute zero tolerance for performance. Be seated. The hearing lasted 2.5 hours. Victor presented everything in sequence. The affair documented and dated. The hotel receipts. The screenshots. Mason's account of finding the evidence. The financial audit showing $71,000 withdrawn from Mason's education fund and traced to hotels, restaurants, and a jewelry purchase. Diane's attorney tried to frame it cleanly. "Your Honor, my client acknowledges the marriage deteriorated. The account in question was jointly held." "Joint access does not equal ethical use," Judge Foley said without looking up. "Continue." Victor then played the prenuptial agreement, Clause 12B, and presented an audio recording from the anniversary dinner, provided voluntarily by one of the guests. Diane's voice, the joke, the laughter, my 7-word response, and the silence after. Judge Foley listened without expression. She set down her pen. "Mr. Webb's son, Mason, you're 17, old enough to have a say here. Where do you want to live?" Mason stood. His voice was steady. "With my dad, Marcus Webb. He's been my father since I was 3. He's the one who showed up." "And your relationship with your mother?" "She spent my college savings on an affair. I don't want to live with her." "Sit down, son." Judge Foley looked at the documents for a long moment. Then she looked directly at Diane. "Mrs. Webb, the affair is documented and undisputed. The financial misuse of your son's education fund is documented and undisputed. The prenuptial agreement is valid and enforceable." She looked down at her notes. "Full custody of Mason Webb is granted to Marcus Webb, with visitation rights to Mrs. Webb at Mason's discretion, not yours. The property at Callaway Drive remains solely the property of Marcus Webb, per the prenuptial agreement. Joint assets are to be divided 60-40 in favor of Mr. Webb due to documented financial misconduct." She looked up. "Mrs. Webb, you are ordered to repay the $71,000 withdrawn from your son's education fund within 20 months, with interest, and to provide quarterly reports to this court on your repayment status. This is not a request. This is a court order. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor," Diane whispered. The gavel came down. Outside, Mason stood beside me in the parking lot, staring at nothing. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah. I just didn't think it would feel this Final. That's the point. He nodded. What now? Now we go home. You finish school, you apply to university, you live your life, and your mom figures out hers on... But that's not your responsibility anymore. He looked at me. Thanks for fighting for me, Dad. Always, I said. That's what fathers do. We drove home together. The weight that had been sitting on both our shoulders for months was simply gone. 2 years can change everything. Mason graduated with honors, 3 university offers. He chose mechanical engineering and never looked back. His education fund was fully restored. I matched every dollar Diane had taken and added $50,000 more. Diane moved into an apartment across town. She got a retail job, the first real job she'd ever held. She paid back the fund in monthly installments. Never missed a payment. I'll give her that much. Mason saw her occasionally. Coffee, short visits, careful conversations. She apologized many times. He kept his distance. Some wounds scar over rather than heal. That's just how it goes. Harlan passed away 8 months ago, heart attack such quick. He left everything to Mason, held in trust. Diane received nothing. At the funeral, she stood in the back and didn't speak to anyone. Mason gave the eulogy. He talked about integrity, about what it means to show up, about the kind of man his grandfather believed he could become. I kept working, expanded the business, opened a second warehouse, hired 22 more people, stayed single, focused, building. And then on a Wednesday in October, I met someone. Her name was Yvonne. 43 years old, divorced, runs a precision fabrication shop on the edge of town. She came in looking for custom parts for a milling project. We talked shop for an hour, and then she asked if I wanted coffee. I said yes. We moved slowly, dinners, long drives, conversations that went nowhere in particular and somehow lasted for hours. She didn't want anything from me except company. That was exactly what I needed. Mason met her 3 months in. They got along immediately. She talked to him like a peer, asked about his coursework, never tried to insert herself into something she wasn't. On Mason's 19th birthday, the 3 of us had dinner at the house. Yvonne cooked and refused to let anyone help. Mason told stories about university life, about engineering problems he was solving, about the person he was becoming. At the end of the night, as Yvonne was leaving, Mason pulled me aside. I like her, Dad. Yeah? She's good for you. I think so too. He smiled. You deserve to be happy. So do you, son. I am, he said. Thanks to you. After he left for campus the next morning, I sat on the back porch with my coffee and watched the sun move across the yard. Thinking about all of it. Diane had made a joke. Careless throwaway. Designed to get a laugh at my expense. She thought I'd absorb it the way I always had. Swallow the humiliation. Smile for the room. Go home and let it go. She had misjudged me entirely. That joke cost her the marriage, the house, her son's trust, her father's respect, her inheritance, and me, the man who had quietly built everything she'd lived inside for 15 years. I lost a wife. I gained clarity. Sometimes the most powerful thing a man can do is simply stand up, button his jacket, and walk out the door. Let the silence do the work. Let the consequences follow on their own. My phone lit up. A text from Yvonne. Coffee this morning. My treat. I smiled and typed back. Sounds good. Life moves forward. Some people move with it. Others stand still and wonder why the world kept going without them. I chose to move forward. I haven't looked back since. If this story hit you the way I think it did, Drop a comment below. What moment got to you the most? Was it Mason's email, the courtroom, that lobby confrontation? And if you're someone who's been the practical one, the dependable one, the person everyone assumes will just take it, I want to hear from you. Hit that subscribe button if you're new here. We tell stories like this every week. Stories about people who got pushed too far, found their line, and refused to let the world define them. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. You never know who's sitting with something heavy right now. See you in the next one.